This is the new Toyota Tacoma, and much like everything that we're seeing from Toyota these days, it's quite a looker. As we say farewell to the third generation that joined us back in 2015, we welcome this all-new, fully redesigned fourth generation for 2024, built on the same TNGA-F global platform shared by the new Tundra, Sequoia, and Land Cruiser. Toyota has always had a winning formula with the Tacoma, and for this new generation, it seems to have only gotten better.
I love Tacomas, and it's because they just make too much sense. They're not too big, they're not too small, they live in that perfect temperature of porridge. But let me change gears slightly and talk about the Tundra. The Tundra is an equally great truck. It's just bigger, more powerful, has more towing capacity. In my mind, or at least for my application, the Tundra is a bit of overkill, and I think that for most people, especially if you don't work in an industry of construction or transporting horses on a daily basis, the Tundra might also be a bit of overkill. And that's where the Tacoma comes in. Because, especially with all of the new technology that Toyota has thrown into this, it's a much more streetable, daily usable vehicle. In fact, it's roughly the same size that the Tundra used to be about 20 years ago, which is very nice. But don't take that to think that this is an old-fashioned truck. No, sir. This has most of what Toyota has to offer today. And being that the Tacoma has largely been the same over the last 9 or 10 years, these changes are quite exciting.
Take the engine for example. There are two different variations. Gone is the naturally aspirated V6, and in its place are a few 2.4-liter turbocharged inline-4 engines with a variety of different power outputs. The base SR outputs 228 horsepower and 243 pound-feet of torque. The SR5, TRD Sport, Off-Road, and Limited all offer a standard 278 horsepower and 317 pound-feet of torque, with an optional iForce Max Hybrid, which is standard for the TRD Pro and Trail Hunter. That iForce Max will output 326 horsepower and 465 pound-feet of torque, all driven by an all-new 8-speed automatic gearbox. If you want a manual, it's still available. It's a 6-speed manual, but the power output is adjusted to 270 horsepower and 310 pound-feet of torque.
Compared to the outgoing V6 that you used to get in the Tacoma, these inline-4s are making some very impressive torque numbers, especially the iForce Max. And on the subject of that iForce Max, it kicks the Tacoma up to now being the torquiest? It's got a lot of torque. More torque than any other truck in its class, including the Chevy Colorado ZR2 and the Ford Ranger Raptor. But here's going to be a quick side-by-side for you to be able to digest all of that information at your own pace. Take a look. I want to talk for a moment, if I may, about suspension, but I'm quite tired, so I'd like to have a seat. And the Tacoma is willing to accommodate, which is quite a nice feature. Trucks are just the best. Okay, so let me talk to you about suspension. On most trucks, you're going to find what's called leaf spring suspension. And there are benefits to this type of suspension. Namely, they're a very simple design, which makes them rather inexpensive, and it also has quite amazing load-bearing capacities. So that really makes a lot of sense for use in a truck, because what do you use a truck for? You use it to tow a bunch of stuff, move a bunch of construction equipment, your tools, etc., etc. So having load-bearing capacity is very important. The trade-off is that they're not the most comfortable setup, they're not tunable, and for that reason, their stiffness really is dependent on how much load you're carrying. Switch gears and let's talk about coil suspension. Coil suspension is a much more sophisticated setup. It allows you to tune for different types of driving characteristics that you're looking for. It also has a wider range of travel. All of this means that you can have a more comfortable or more purposeful ride for whatever it is that you're doing with your vehicle. The trade-off is that they are more expensive and they don't have as good of load-bearing capacity as leaf springs. So why do I bring this up? Well, because on the new Tacoma, and to the best of my knowledge, it wasn't available on any Tacoma before this generation, for the SR5 double cab and up, you now get coil suspension in the rear. This means that the Tacoma is more streetable. It's still a truck, and you still have all the truck stuff that you can do, like sit on the tailgate, but it's a little bit more usable like an everyday car, and it's more comfortable. Another thing that I want to mention is while I was doing the research for this video, I've come to realize that Toyota has taken the different trims of this car to a next level. They're much more purposeful, not just a bunch of stickers on the side of the truck.
The TRD Sport has Sport Tune suspension from TRD for a more responsive feel in the corners. The TRD Off-Road has Bilsteins with extended wheel travel and improved heat dissipation, both suited for off-road exploration. The Pro has Fox QS3 three-way adjustable internal bypass shocks, and the Trail Hunter the new Old Man Emu 4x4 suspension by ARB for optimal off-road and load-bearing performance.
More good news on the Tacoma because the changes, they're not just for the exterior or the vehicle's loins. You have some much needed updates for the vehicle's interior. Let me start by talking you through the screens. For the lower trims, you're going to get a 7-inch gauge cluster with an 8-inch infotainment screen. The higher trims are going to get a 12.3-inch digital gauge cluster with a much larger 14-inch infotainment screen. And the nice thing about that new infotainment screen is while it is larger, they don't try to jam more things into it. It's got the same information as the smaller screen, it's just bigger, which is nicer if you have big grizzly hands or you're wearing gloves or anything of the sort. Other nice things, I fit in this new interior. And you might say, well, it's a truck. Of course you fit, everyone fits in trucks, but that's not the case. I actually was going to buy a Tacoma in the past and I was very excited. I went to test drive it, it was green. But when I sat in the car, the steering wheel was rested firmly against my thighs. And no matter how I moved the seat or the steering wheel, I couldn't quite get myself to fit. So when I was driving, every time I would turn the wheel, it would slowly erode away my legs. Different case now. I have plenty of space, it's quite comfortable. My head fits and so do my legs. I don't have to detach anything to drive this truck. Overall, the aesthetic of the interior is very rugged, all very nice, but because there's so much new stuff on this truck, I'm gonna limit myself and tell you a few of my favorite new features on the Tacoma's interior. The rear seats on the new Tacoma are great for sitting in, but they're also really great for hiding all of this extra storage. Now, you've always had extra storage in the back of Tacomas, but now you have 3 times more storage than the previous generation for the petrol-powered versions of the new generation. Your passenger will know exactly what you're driving because it says Tacoma right here in front of them, so you don't have to tell them and you don't have to talk to them. All of the buttons that you would want to be buttons are buttons and they're not touch screens. So if you do wear gloves or if you are covered in mud, you can still feel around. Everything has some nice tactile feedback. All of your fan speed, air conditioning, mode selection, all of it is this rugged material with plenty of rough edges so you can get a good grip. Having a 360 camera is not unusual, but there is something annoying that a lot of cars do where it's not actually your car. Toyota has thought of this. So if you push this button, it shows the car, but obviously we're not in a red car. So you push this button here, and then you can change the color of your truck so that you can make sure that the 360 view that you're looking at is actually of your truck. So here we are behind the wheel of the new Tacoma. First impressions, it sounds quite good. I actually really like the way that this truck sounds. And very important, right now we're driving up an incline, it has torque. That's something that the last generation of this truck really needed. It was a naturally aspirated V6. The torque figures were in the low 200s. This 317 pound-feet of torque, that is a healthy amount of torque for a truck of this size, and you feel it. The truck no longer struggles when it's going uphill. Also, ride quality is sublime, especially, again, compared to the previous truck. I think that has large in part due to the new coil rear suspension. It makes the ride more forgiving. This is the TRD off-road package, so the suspension is tuned more in favor of off-road capabilities. So I would imagine that the TRD Sport, or better yet, the Limited, would be tuned in such a way to make it that much more comfortable on the road. The seating position is excellent, and that new 8-speed automatic transmission is very smooth. I'm glad that they didn't go for a CVT transmission, and I'm better still glad that they don't have paddle shifters. I feel like everybody's putting paddle shifters on everything nowadays, and not everything needs paddle shifters, especially not a truck. I don't need paddles. I think it's fine the way that it is. It makes the truck less complicated and makes the personality that much more confident in who it is. And that, to me, is a big thing, because right now, every vehicle is trying to be everything. And you don't need to do that. Just do your job and do it well. And the Tacoma does. Toyota's engineers, when they were developing this, had a mantra, and that was badass adventure machine. And I think they've hit the nail right on the head, because that's the first thing that popped into my head when I saw it. That thing is badass. And with the TRD off-road package, you can pretty much go anywhere that you need to, especially with the multi-terrain, different modes. It will change the way that the drivetrain is going to react to different surfaces. All very clever, and it all works really well. I've also read that they've made some sizable improvements to the crawl control feature on this Tacoma, which that was already impressive as it was. So I can only imagine how much better it is now. This truck feels like something that I would comfortably drive every single day without feeling like I was compromising because, oh, well, I need a truck. If you wanted to have a truck, but you didn't necessarily need a truck for every single day, I feel like the Tacoma is now the perfect vehicle for you. It's decently good on gas, especially for a truck. It's comfortable, it's spacious, it's gonna do everything that you need it to do. It's well equipped with all of the technology that you could possibly want. It's a good daily driver, and it has the added advantage of everything that you get that comes along with owning a truck. Also, with the TRD trims, you're going to have larger disc brakes, and if you go with the iForce Max engines, you're gonna get larger brakes still. Overall, driving this truck, it feels excellent. There's really too much to talk about with this new Tacoma. It's almost like every trim and every option is deserving of its own video. So what's the takeaway? It seems like the Tacoma has really evolved into being the kind of truck that you can build out to whatever it is that your specific needs are. It's almost as if Toyota has taken a page out of Porsche's book of configurators. What's my opinion on that? I am quite a fan of it, because after all, a truck, I think almost more than any other vehicle, is designed to serve a purpose. And with all of these different configurations and trims and options and features, they've made the Tacoma capable of being built out to a much broader variety of purposes. Now, the price for all of this, the base SR is gonna start you at $31,500. And if you go up to the limited without options, it's around $52,000. Now, I don't have pricing for the Trail Hunter or TRD Pro because at the time of filming this video, they have not yet been released, but hopefully we'll get to those in the future. Is that too expensive for a truck? I don't think so. I think it's right in line with the pricing for its competitors. And don't forget, this is a Tacoma, so you're not really spending money, you're more just parking your money in a really cool off-roady investment. But that's all for this video. I want to say a huge thank you to Toyota and Lexus of Temecula Valley for loaning me this stunning example of the truck so soon after they hit the showroom floors to do a video for you guys. So all of the regular links to their website and their social media will be in the description down below, as will the link to this exact truck, which they're currently offering for sale. Otherwise, leave me a comment down below with your thoughts on the new Tacoma. If you already have a Tacoma, are you thinking about upgrading to the new one? Why or why not? And if not, would you buy the new Tacoma, and which trim would you choose? Why or why not? Give me as much information and opinions as you can in the comments down below. Otherwise, thank you so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed the video, but until the next one, take care.